children of Gaza, nearly half of the population, because for them, the misery is only growing. Here's NBC's Richard Engel.
For the 1 million children in Gaza, life has become unbearable. Mohammed Al-Yazigi is 13 years old and now has more responsibilities than he ever imagined. With his mother killed in an Israeli airstrike and his father missing, presumed still buried under rubble, Mohammed is taking care of his 7 brothers and sisters. They live in a tent in Rafah. Israel ordered Palestinians to come here in southern Gaza for their own safety as Israeli troops battle Hamas. A pile of clothing and blankets is all Mohammed's family has left. I want this war to end and to go back to school and be with my friends, he says. Instead, every morning, Mohammed collects firewood and has learned to cook for his siblings. With no money at all, neighbors sometimes give him handouts. But it's not nearly enough, so he joins the scramble at the food lines. Children can wait for up to 8 hours for a single pot of soup. Mohammed's youngest sister is still a newborn, but he can't get her to drink the formula a shopkeeper gave him. He tries to sing like his mother did, but he doesn't know how to soothe the baby. Also in Rafah are Nadine and Jude Abdulatif. She's also 13, also from Gaza City. She's moved 6 times to escape the fighting before ending up here.
What we're living is horrible, and what we're practically living like animals, and we shouldn't live like that. We should live like human beings.
Medically vulnerable children have been pushed over the edge. In October, we visited a home for disabled children in Gaza City and saw Iyas, blind and with debilitating complex needs. He and the others have also been displaced to Rafah, now living in a garage. He's become very stiff without the medicine he needs to relax his uncontrollable muscle contractions.
I don't want our future to live like this. I want it to be changed.
The stakes. NBC's Richard Engel, thank you.
Welcome to a Friday edition of RBN Live. So let's call this our RBN Fridays. I'm your host for this episode. I am CJ. That's how I'm known online. That stands for Compton J, or J in real life. Today is a unique one. It's a unique in a sense. If you've been watching me for the last year, I'm doing shows a little bit differently, where I have a theme for the entire episode, and then I have receipts. They might be some current news receipts that fit into the story. That's typically what happened, and then I get some other receipts to fill in, and that's the case for today. I saw some Case Study QB, and if you're part of this community, you know who Case Study is. Case Study QB has a little, you see his little marker in the top of the right-hand corner on this video. And I saw 3, and I was like, wow, this is some bullshit here. And the episode morphed as I watched more clips, and then morphed into what you see now, which is the left's case against the Democratic Party, and selling out your policy beliefs for Genocide Joe is unforgivable. So that is today's overarching theme, and we're going to get into some other things to support the broader topic. Here's the graphic. Hard pass, and here's some of the other sort of sub sections. Selling out your policy beliefs for Genocide Joe is unforgivable. We have to be honest with workers about the Democrats. You can't be selling them a pipe dream. AOC and Bernie selling out for Genocide Joe. And then Morning Joe praises AOC and Bernie for selling out for years. And that is actually the video that sparked even going live, because we do 2 live streams on Thursday. Sabby and JB show at 6 p.m. Eastern, and then the Nick at Night show at 9 p.m. Eastern, because we don't typically have a live stream on Friday, unless somebody wants to just kind of hop on, which I'm doing today. So hit that like button so we can get some, let more people know we are here for this Friday. Hit that like button. Let's make the target 115. So let's shoot for 115 likes, if you will. And I do want to start the segment. Let me just read this here. Knowing is half the battle. The other half is stuff I can't say on YouTube, and that is facts. Thank you for that super chat. Cobra Commander, Hamas are heroes. Cobra Commander, Hamas are heroes. So let's get into the topic. And we're gonna start. I'm gonna play this video again for the presentation for the sake of when we clip this. So let's start here. Now, this is what I believe is the case against the Democratic Party from a left perspective, left-leaning perspective, socialist. Just say left-leaning. Let me not get into the titles. So here we go. Let's watch this video, because to me this is the framing. The framing begins with this.
It's about the children of Gaza, nearly half of the population, because for them, the misery is only growing. Here's NBC's Richard Engel.
For the 1 million children in Gaza, life has become unbearable. Mohammed Al-Yazigi is 13 years old and now has more responsibilities than he ever imagined. With his mother killed in an Israeli airstrike and his father missing, presumed still buried under rubble, Mohammed is taking care of his 7 brothers and sisters. They live in a tent in Rafah. Israel ordered Palestinians to come here in southern Gaza for their own safety as Israeli troops battle Hamas. A pile of clothing and blankets is all Mohammed's family has left. I want this war to end and to go back to school and be with my friends, he says. Instead, every morning, Mohammed collects firewood and has learned to cook for his siblings. With no money at all, neighbors sometimes give him handouts. But it's not nearly enough, so he joins the scramble at the food lines. Children can wait for up to 8 hours for a single pot of soup. Mohammed's youngest sister is still a newborn, but he can't get her to drink the formula a shopkeeper gave him. He tries to sing like his mother did, but he doesn't know how to soothe the baby. Also in Rafah are Nadine and Jude Abdulatif. She's also 13, also from Gaza City. She's moved 6 times to escape the fighting before ending up here.
What we're living is horrible, and what we're practically living like animals, and we shouldn't live like that.
And the reason I wanted to start with this video, with this presentation about the case against the Democratic Party from a left perspective, is because how do they say? Standing on policy beliefs. That's the new expression, using standing. So standing on policy beliefs, if that's your core, and that's typically the sign of a person who is left, is that you have the reputation of being more staunch, more stubborn, and sticking to your policy beliefs. Now, when it comes to the left, there's a lot of things. There's Medicare for all. There's defund the police for some that are more radical on the left. Then there's, $15 minimum wage. There's a lot of different markers that indicate that you could be considered someone who we would call on the left. Free Palestine has always been there, or most time has always been there. Let's say it that way. Has always been there. But it's always been there. Not in such clear terms as it is now with this genocide that's happening. So people have been able to say, oh, Palestine this, Palestine that, I'm for Palestine. But until this latest Nakba, let's call it that, genocide that's happening in occupied Palestine, because of the sheer numbers, it has shocked the system to see who's really down for the Palestinians and who's really just virtue signaling. So the reason I feel like this is the framing is this is like one of our most important issues, pressing issues, definitely the most the most pressing issue right now, considering we've already topped 30,000 dead. And I'm including those that are missing. If they're missing this long, I'm including those two numbers to equal the over the 30,000. It's something like 24,000 known dead, 7,000 plus missing still. So this is the framing, and this is where we're answering. We're presenting the question: is selling out your policy beliefs worth a vote for Joe Biden? Is it worth a vote from for Joe Biden? So let's get into some more of the presentation. I started there with that. Let's go to some of my notes here. When talking, let me just ask a couple of questions. Do you, as a person left-leaning, do you see your policy beliefs being reflected in the Democratic Party? I guess that would be the first question. Do you see your policy beliefs being reflected in the Democratic Party? Now, me as a person who I would consider on the left, I can name a couple of things that aren't reflected. My belief in healthcare is not reflected in the Democratic Party. So I can't name, let me say it this way, I can't name things that are reflected in the Democratic Party. I can name things that they don't reflect, because that's a much longer list of items. Another new thing, Rumble comments are supposed to be, Rumble comments are here now. So if you're on Rumble, StreamYard now has this feature where we've now connected Rumble, the account, to our StreamYard. So now they've added the feature where Rumble chat is now in the main chat. Now, I don't know if on Rumble you can see other comments like from YouTube, but I know we can see your comments. So that is another feature. I know I interrupted the presentation to say that, but I just wanted to make sure I said that, because it is something that is brand new, and I'm happy to see this one from X. X comments aren't here? Hell to the no. That's one of the questions I asked. All right, so back to the presentation here. So we answer the questions. Do you see your policy beliefs being reflected in the Democratic Party? No, we do not. Do you see your policy beliefs being reflected at least in the candidate Joe Biden? I would say that's a resounding no. Now let's go to the next sort of question here. Harm reduction, aka what they call lesser of two evil, if it's a binary choice, is Joe Biden the lesser of two evils? And when you're making that judgment, is he the lesser of two evils on things like war, like the police state, like the economy, like Palestine, like minimum wage, like healthcare? Now, if you buy into the, let's give it respect. If you buy into the argument of ending democracy, and you make the calculation that Joe Biden is the lesser of two evils, we have to ask, what exactly is this democracy we're saving? Meaning, define what the democracy is. I'm getting to the, I'm breaking down the case on why not the Democratic Party. But that is a question. So in other words, describe what our democracy looks like. Now, what does our democracy look like? Does it look like workers prospering? Does it look like workers getting a fair share? Does it, when I say workers, if you're brand new to the channel, workers meaning the regular people. We are workers. The world, or how we view it here, the world is divided into two. It's the owners and the workers. Those are the two categories. Or in other words, the people, the proletariat. Minimum wage, what was I saying? So in other words, describe the democracy. So minimum wage suppressed for workers, funding and supporting a genocide in Palestine, the lack of health care for every single person in the United States, a $1 trillion budget for the war machine. What else sort of defines this democracy? Our government not delivering on what the people want. A vast, large swaths of the American population not being able to do things like take days off of work, even when they're sick, working paycheck to paycheck, high gas prices, higher gas prices, inflation. A larger gap in the economic inequality. That's the democracy we're saving. And let me continue. Corrupt, bought politicians who never deliver on anything, instead launder our money to the police state. They want us to save that. They want you to sell out your policies, beliefs to supposedly save that. So there's layers of just sort of contradictions here. So let's let me get here. The next thing I have written here in my notes is, what are the benefits that you materially get between a Biden administration versus a Trump administration? Meaning, if you are throwing away your policy beliefs in order to vote for Joe Biden, let's say you don't believe the democracy argument. Let's say democracy, you don't think democracy is going to end, but you still believe that he's the lesser of two evils. What are the material differences? That, I think that's a legitimate question. And what do I have written here down here? Because if you're going to set aside your core policy beliefs, it seems like you should be getting something different out of the administration when it comes to things like war, healthcare, minimum wage, inflation, corruption. So in those categories, is there a measurable difference between a Trump administration and a Biden administration? If your answer is no, let me set it up for you. Let me set up the whole thing that I've been painting for the last 5 or 10 minutes. So let's do it both ways. You believe democracy is ending, lesser of two evils. So you believe democracy is ending, then you have to beg the question, what democracy? What makes up the democracy? Describe the democracy. And we described it. It sounds like hell. Let's say you don't buy the ending democracy argument. These are all arguments to vote for Joe Biden. There's a ending democracy argument, and then there's a lesser of two evil, but you don't believe in the democracy part. Let's say you're more grounded in reality and you don't believe in the whole ending the democracy nonsense. And you just say, I believe he is different. How? And I'm asking you materially when it comes to the war machine. What's different? Because it seems to me Joe Biden has spent more on war than but Donald Trump did. Now, granted, if Donald Trump gets in, he's likely to spend more than, to just keep increasing. Whoever the latest one is going to have the higher amount. What about healthcare? Now, again, the reason I say materially, because I'm not asking you who virtue signals different. I'm asking what is the material difference? What is the tangible difference between the two administrations? In war, there's no difference. In war funding, there's no difference. In your war posture, there's no difference. Meaning, Ukraine war is still going to be popping off. The war with Israel is still going to be popping off. Funding both of those is still going to be popping off, whichever Donald Trump or Biden. When it comes to healthcare, again, we're talking materially. Do you tangibly get healthcare from either administration? Do you materially get healthcare from either administration? Now, here's the other argument they'll say when it comes to healthcare. But Obamacare and Trump and their team is trying to end it. Do we not have a divided Congress right now? There's a backstop for that. And two, they've had all branches of Congress and still couldn't pass to get that repealed. So stop using that as a scare tactic. In other areas, economics is now, haven't we been living through higher inflation compared to Donald Trump? Has your economics gotten better? Has prices gone down? So again, we've established there is no difference between the administrations. I believe there is no democracy that's ending. So the point that I'm trying to make here and illustrate, I hope I'm illustrating, is that if you're going to sell out your policy beliefs, or why are you going to sell out your policy beliefs to vote for Joe Biden when you aren't getting anything? You're getting the same thing whether a Trump is in office or whether a Biden is in office. So why are you being duped out of selling out your policy beliefs? You don't tangibly get Medicare for all when Biden is in office. You don't tangibly get let's just say single payer, even if it's not Medicare for all. You don't tangibly get minimum wage increase. So why are we selling out our policy beliefs? How could you look at what's happening in this video in Palestine with these Palestinian kids and this young man having to raise and look after his younger siblings, and he's not even 10 years old, with an infant baby who won't take the formula? So the point is not that nobody's saying go vote for Trump. Nobody's saying if Trump gets in office. The point I'm saying is either one in office, the policies don't change. The policies don't materially change. So why sell out your beliefs? Build up a third party. Vote independent. Hell, vote for Cornel West. Vote for RFK before you vote for the Democratic Party, because at least he's not a part of the Democratic Party. He's not going to win. So don't think he's going to vote for, get so many votes he's going to win. If I thought he was going to win, of course I wouldn't say that, but anything but red or blue. That's how I look at it. We're going to get into some video content and maybe get back to some notes in a little bit. Let's see which one I'm going to start with. So we're going to go to this clip of Morning Joe talking about how progressives have sold out the Democratic Party. Is it Morning Joe? Yeah, it's Morning Joe, I believe. Now, let me set it up, because Is this the same? Yeah, this is the same video. Because it goes along with the case against the Democratic Party. Because you might, if you want to be invested, you say, I'm invested because I have people. Maybe the party doesn't represent me. Let me say it this way. Maybe the party doesn't represent me, but I have people who represent my values who are in the inside. Do you? Do you have that? That would be my question, but let's listen to what he says here. Actually, let me make sure this is the right video here. Yeah, let me make sure this is the right video, because there's 3 Morning Joe videos. Yes, okay, this is it. There's 3. I just want to make sure I'm playing the right one for the right context. So this applies to what I just said. Let's play.
Talking about the base, the zeal of the base, the zeal of the Democratic base is mainly progressive. And Eddie, you know, I'm an old line conservative, and yet I've noted over the past 4 years on this show, progressives who are usually attacked in the media, mainstream media, is sort of having their heads in the clouds and, you know, being Marxist, this, that, the other, and not being realistic. I've noted that progressives, both in Congress and across America, have shown an extraordinary amount of discipline, hanging tight with Joe Biden, hanging tight with whether it's Speaker Pelosi or whether it's Schumer, when the party moved noticeably to the center. And I guess the question is, and why I think Jonathan's article is so important, is the real question is, will progressives who have already shown a lot of discipline over the past 4 years, will they continue that over the next year and deliver the political death blow to Donald Trump?
My gut, Joe, is that they will. We will. But there has to be organizing. It's not enough just simply to put forward policies, right? There has to be organizing on the ground. There has to be a flood of GOTV money in areas so that we can turn out young voters and voters of color, as it were. The internal debates around what's happening in Gaza, the internal debates around student loan forgiveness and a range of progressive policies, that's going to happen. But I think this question around, you know, the fate of our democracy, the state of the republic, that looms large. And I think the progressive wing of the party understands the stakes, and they're going to act accordingly. But that doesn't come without critique, without trying to push the Biden administration in a certain direction and hold it accountable to its promises. And that's to be expected. But I do think let me speak for me in this moment. I understand the stakes of the moment.
Last block about progressives. How important is it for the Biden administration to put distance between themselves and Netanyahu more aggressively and to say it publicly? Because the word coming out of the White House is that's exactly what they're going to do. But how important is it that Biden go ahead and do that?
I think it's absolutely central, Joe. And of course, still some progressives will not be satisfied even with that. But I think it's really important for the Biden administration to understand the necessity of recognizing that 10,000 children have been killed. And under no condition is innocence justified to be wiped off the planet in this instance, right? And so I think that's really important. I also think it's important for us to understand, too, the impact of this particular orientation, Joe, in terms of the U.S. reputation in relation to the global South, right? We're taking a black eye across the globe in an interesting sort of way. So not only do we have problems with our base, he has problems with our base here in the U.S., I think he has problems with our moral standing across the globe, it seems to me, unless he becomes more forceful in his critique of Netanyahu and more forceful in his defense of innocents who are bearing the brunt of Netanyahu's policies.
So that's another thing I'm going to try to do this newer this time, is let the clips play all the way through and then go back and sort of break them down. So let that play all the way through so you know what's being said. And now I'm going to go back and sort of analyze this from the perspective of how I started. Is this what you want to sell your policy beliefs out for? That is the question. And with the elected left, the AOC, the Squad, the Bernie, and their sibling, offspring, cousins, who are whatever you want to say, we have to be honest about those characters. And I feel like RBN and RBN and the people in our community have been that. The Jimmy Dores, the Comrade Misties, the Convo Couches. But actually, let me because I'm trying to set up this. Let me just play the video and then I'll set up this other part for my notes here. I'll break it down.
Talking about the base, the zeal of the base, the zeal of the Democratic base is mainly progressive. And Eddie, I'm an old.
The zeal of the base is mainly progressive. This is an acknowledgement that enthusiasm comes from the base. Enthusiasm comes from the youth generally. So this is who they have to speak to. But I make a plea to those left-leaning people who might be open to the Democratic Party is you have to demand more than just rhetoric. And you see what they're trying to do. I'll just say it here. You see what they're trying to do. And it's later on in the video, but they're trying to set it up, set up a smoke and mirrors game with you who support Palestine. They're not changing any policy belief. Any policy is not being changed. So the policy of genocide is not being changed. What they're going to make a hard pivot to is Netanyahu. And it's a divide with Netanyahu. So you're going to see Joe Biden coming out and being more forceful in his language about Netanyahu not being the future of Israel. And they're going to make this now about a two-state solution and not the genocide that has already taken place. That's what they're going to attempt to do. And the question begs, is this the party? Is this the candidate you want to sell out your policy beliefs for?
Old line conservative. And yet I've noted over the past 4 years on this show, progressives who are usually attacked in the media, mainstream media is sort of having their heads in the clouds and, being Marxist.
Now, what he's describing, he's saying we are usually attacked as Marxists, as being our heads in the clouds, meaning we have a dream. We are dreaming of a fantasy, equality, equity, humanity. This is a fantasy to the establishment. It's a fantasy. And that's how they describe it. So it's like he's basically saying Bernie and AOC normally would be asking for the world, but they're no longer doing that. So if we are to support the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party as a whole doesn't follow our policy beliefs and Joe Biden doesn't fall in line with our policy beliefs, and the people who claim to fall in our policy beliefs are actually selling us out, I'm trying to see where's the benefit in this, unless you fall for the insanity of democracy ending. You have to believe in Santa Claus for this shit. You have to believe in Santa Claus in order to still be voting for the Democratic Party.
This, that, the other, and not being realistic. I've noted that progressives, both in Congress and across America, have shown an extraordinary amount of discipline.
This is what the person who got you to sell out, this is how they describe it to you, so you don't feel like a complete asshole. This is how they describe you. Isn't this how the state, isn't this how the police state describes you when you're in court? When you snitched on your friend? This is exactly how they describe it. Let me rewind it so you can hear it again.
An extraordinary amount of discipline.
You have done an extraordinary thing for your community by snitching on this person. That's the same thing they tell you. Try to pump you up. Make you feel good about selling out. Same tactic Morning Joe is using here. What he's called extraordinary discipline, we call selling out. He means discipline, meaning your policy beliefs over here, but you're over here in this community with the warmongering imperialist Democrats. Instead of hanging over there, and you're showing such discipline with staying in this lane and not falling black into the clouds of your fantasy beliefs about how government should be ran.
Hanging tight with Joe Biden, hanging tight with whether it's Speaker Pelosi or whether it's Schumer.
So selling out for Schumer, selling out for Biden, and selling out for Pelosi. And they're praising them for this.
When the party moved noticeably to the center.
And that's the part I wanted to stop on again. Now, if a right winger, a conservative like Joe Scarborough is admitting that the Democratic Party has moved to the center, don't you think he's underplaying, under-describing how we would describe it? Now, if you are a left, if you are the left, and that's what the Democratic Party is considered left, Republicans are considered right. Second here, that comment. I'm going to star that comment. That's a good comment.
Noticeably to the center. And I guess
if you are on the left, how do you get to the center? And unless you move to the right, how do you get to the center? Oops. I got to pop up on my screen. Let me get it off so I can see here. Okay, there we go. So pop up on my screen. All right, so let's continue with the video and analysis.
I guess the question is, and why I think Jonathan's article is so important, is the real question is, will progressives who have already shown a lot of discipline over the past 4 years, will they continue that over the next year and deliver the political death blow to Donald Trump?
That's what they're asking. So Morning Joe is asking Bernie Sanders, AOC, and all of us, and all of you who may have, who falls under the category that he's describing. Are you going to fall in line? Are you going to continue to sell out your policy beliefs for broken promises? But he's forgiving some people's student loan debt. That's payment for the last election, sir. That's payment for the last election. That's not payment for this upcoming election. But that's what they're going to be trying to do, and they've already doing. I think I might have a clip that explains that a little bit later. Let's get back to this clip, though.
My gut, Joe, is that we will, but there has to be organizing. It's not enough just simply to put forward policies, right? There has to be organizing on the ground. There has to be a flood of GOTV money in areas where.
So this is where Eddie Glaude Jr. really, because he walks this line of anybody on TV, he probably gets away, along with Cornel West, gets away with saying some of the most best critique of the Democratic Party and Joe Biden. He is allowed to go the furthest, as long as he speaks to their large sort of ruling class talking points, January 6th, you know, as long as he signs up for that, Donald Trump is worse, end of democracy, then they'll let him say stuff on race, then they'll let him say stuff on Palestine, then they'll let him say stuff on Joe Biden. That's what he's used for. And he's also being used here because when he says, I think they will, he's saying what they want to hear. But he is given a caveat. He is saying they're not just going to walk over. It's going to take some work.
Donald Trump.
My gut, Joe, is that they will. We will. But there has to be organizing. It's not enough just simply to put forward policies, right? There has to be organizing on the ground. There has to be a flood of GOTV money in areas so that we can turn out young voters. And
what would be on the TV except for lies? You get what I'm saying? Like, you're flooding the airwaves, you're flooding the streaming waves, if you want to say, if you will, where advertisement that says what? How good of a job you've done? We need to know what you're going to do in the future, not student loan debt that you owe us from the last election, sir. That doesn't count towards the next election. Student loan debt forgiveness does not count for the future election in 2024. That's payment for the last election, but I beat it the point to death there. Here we go.
There has to be a flood of GOTV money in areas so that we can turn out young voters and voters of color, as it were. The internal debates around what's happening in Gaza, the internal debates around student loan forgiveness and a range of progressive policies, that's going to happen. But I think this question around, the fate of our democracy, the state.
This is why they allow him the space to say all of those. In cable news, he says radical things. It's not radical to us, but in cable news, he says the more radical things because what he is bait. He's bait. He's the bait, but on his hook or he is bait, but he is bait for a specific type of fish. He is bait. He is for the palate of a specific type of voter, a voter who is more radical and who is thinking and has been thinking so long, so many cycles. I need to get out of the Democratic Party. They have been disappointing me. That's what he's for. Because think about the message he has and whose ears this would be a good message to. Radical shit, radical analysis. End of democracy. You see, you pick up the radical people and then you keep talking them into this end of democracy argument, or at least lesser of two evils argument. And then this is what they do. This is why Bernie Sanders likely ran in 2020, knowing that he wasn't going to win because of what happened to 2016. He ran so he can gather other people and bring them back to the Democratic Party. Let's get through this clip so we can get to the next one.
State of the republic, that looms large. And I think the progressive wing of the party understands the stakes and they're going to act accordingly. But that doesn't come without critique, without trying to push the Biden administration.
So he's basically saying the marches and the protests you see, they're just doing that. They're still going to vote for you, Joe Biden. They're still going to vote for a person that says Genocide Joe. I really do believe they're underestimating 10,000 dead kids in occupied Palestine. They're really underestimating that. They really think that, oh, it's just another thing that the progressive left, we can walk all over them about, that they're not going to do anything about, just another thing we can do. Let's let it play.
In a certain direction and hold it accountable to its promises. And that's to be expected. But I do think let me speak for me in this moment. I understand the stakes of the moment.
Last block about progressives. How important is it for the Biden administration to put distance between themselves and Netanyahu more aggressively and to say publicly? Because the word coming out of the White House is that's exactly what they're going to do. But how important is it that Biden go ahead and do that?
I think it's absolutely central, Joe. And of course, still some progressive.
I thought I hit pause, but it didn't pause. This is where you hear the idea, or at least the strategy that's on the horizon, is to make Netanyahu the scapegoat to progressives. Now, if we see Majority Report, TYT start to come out making this argument, you're gonna know the game before you see it. And it's going to be pretty despicable to see even more Majority Report and TYT coming out and saying you should vote for Joe Biden. They're already doing it. So I'll take that back. I got another video where Majority Report is already doing the vote genocide or who. So scratch that. They've already completed that. So let's get back to more of the video. But again, this is the beginning of them turning up the rhetoric about how Joe Biden and Netanyahu are at odds. It's about to be turned up. Right now, it's like at a level of a 4. You hear it every now and then, but they're about to go hard at that and make it seem like the genocide is only because of Netanyahu and not because of the state of Israel. Disconnect the genocide from the state of Israel and only latch it to Netanyahu. That is the strategy moving forward for Joe Biden.
Progressives will not be satisfied even with that. But I think it's really important for the Biden administration to understand the necessity of recognizing that 10,000 children have been killed. And under no condition is innocence justified to be wiped off the planet in this instance, right? And so I think that's really important. I also think it's important for us to understand too the impact of this particular orientation, Joe, in terms of the U.S. reputation in relation to the global South, right? We're taking a black eye across the globe in an interesting sort of way. So not only.
So what he's speaking to here is that this is not just here. Like, it would benefit you to speak against Netanyahu. Actually, I mean, it would benefit you to be against Israel when you're talking about global support. But this is what he's speaking to. He's saying the global South and around the world, our reputation, our reputation, our credibility has taken a hit. Like, and I'm just thinking, how can it get any lower? I mean, Iraq, how can it get any lower? It's
important for the Biden administration to understand the necessity of recognizing that 10,000 children have been killed. And under no condition is innocence justified to be wiped off the planet in this instance, right? And so I think that's really important. I also think it's important for us to understand too the impact of this particular orientation, Joe, in terms of the U.S. reputation in relation to the global South, right? We're taking a black eye across the globe in an interesting sort of way. So not only do we have problems.
He calls pursuing genocide orientation. You hear how he says that? This particular orientation is taking a hit. This particular position on genocide
with our base. He has problem with our base here in the U.S. I think he has problems with our moral standing across the globe, it seems to me, unless he becomes more forceful in his critique of Netanyahu and more forceful in his defense of innocents who are bearing the brunt of Netanyahu's policies.
So yeah, and let me put this comment up since it's related to the segment. This one from super chat. This one from Janice. Thank you, Janice, for the super chat. And let's read what she says. Serious wishful thinking on their part. Understand the state of the moment. No, dude, trying to convince MSNBC brain dead audience fantasy is reality. And I think it is wishful thinking that they think that people are going to forget this. Now, there's some people, the majority report, the Sam Cedars, they're going to forget this. They've already signaled that they're going to be moving on from this. And let me give you my tweet on this and what I said about this. And that is, while Morning Joe praises AOC, the squad, and the Bernie Sanders industrial complex for selling out their principles for the last 4 years, Morning Joe even admits the Democrats have moved noticeably to the center, which means they moved to the right. So yeah, all right. So let's get to the next sort of receipt in this presentation. And the next thing I want to go to is another Morning Joe clip, but it more speaks to the part of the repercussions of his policy position, of his orientation that he says, his policy orientation as Eddie Glaude used in the previous video. But let's get to that one, and that is Joe Biden is caught in a vice. Keep getting this pop up on here. Joe Biden is caught in a vice. So let's get to that video right here. Biden in a vice. This is also from Case Study QB. It is the same episode, but it's a different segment. So Eddie Glaude is here, but he's not speaking here in this part. Let's put it up on the screen and let's play.
I'll ask you the same thing in closing. The Biden administration had listening sessions actually inside the White House with younger workers who had real concerns about Israel and Gaza. I'm wondering, what does the Biden administration need to do to get the progressive base energized, since that's where the real ground game comes from in November?
It's a very tricky problem. First of all, I think President Biden is conducting his foreign policy on foreign policy grounds. He's not conducting his Israel policy as an election issue. I think he actually cares about the issue and is trying to do what he thinks is best, whether it's right or wrong. Second of all, but analyzing it politically, he's in a vice, because to the extent he moves closer to what the base wants, he moves further from what the center wants. So he really is facing demands to move further from the center of public opinion on political grounds. So I'm not really sure there is a political solution for him, except to the extent that he can actually put this war to rest and get it out of the headlines and get it, out of people's heads and get them focusing more on issues where I think he has a more solid chance of unifying his coalition.
All right, New York Magazine's Jonathan Chait, thank you very much for your insight.
So you see there with a guy, at least, and the reason why I wanted to play that, because at least he's being honest. Like, this guy is in a vice. There's really not nothing he could do here, because one leaning in one way eliminates part of your coalition and leaning the other way. I wonder if he went all in on Palestine, though. Do you really think the Zionists would leave the Democratic Party? And how much would that affect the Democratic Party? I never hear them saying Zionists are part of their coalition. I always hear them saying young people. I always hear them saying black people. I never hear them saying Zionists. So you have to prove to me, I guess, that he would lose part of his base or enough of his base or enough of his coalition, let's put it that way, if he were to go all in on Palestine. You have to prove that to me. That hasn't been proven to me yet. But let's break down the video now. Again, I'm playing the videos all the way through first so you get a chance to watch, and then we break down.
I'll ask you the same thing in closing. You know, the Biden administration had listening sessions actually inside the White House with younger workers who had real concerns about Israel and Gaza. I'm wondering, what does Joe Biden,
So they had a listening session with, I guess, staffers, workers about this, meaning they weren't in the room. They're just listening to them talk about the issue. So Joe Biden can't say he does not know exactly the policy positions of young voters. He also knows he's not going to fulfill at all any of those policy wants from young voters and left-leaning voters. He also knows that there is not going to be any policy beliefs. There just has to be framing. There just has to be a different way to trick the workers. This is why they always say it has to be a different message. It has to be a different message. You never hear them say there has to be a different policy. There needs to be a policy shift. They never say that because it's never about changing what they've already made a calculation that they're going to go for. It's about confusing you. That's what it's always about. Let's continue.
what does the Biden administration need to do to get the progressive base energized, since that's where the real ground game comes from in November?
You can't. You cannot. And the fact that Netanyahu and the state of Israel has said, "Hey, buddy, United States, this war is not ending anytime soon." So you're seeing in more current news, you're seeing a big to-do being made about this two-state solution, because Netanyahu came out and said, we don't want to do two-state solution and stop asking me about it. So he finally publicly came out and said the two-state solution is off the table. So now Joe Biden has been given a green light. You see how this is a dance? Netanyahu's playing the same dance. Netanyahu understands that the policy position that he's taking publicly plays well in Israel. So it's a win-win for both of them. They go to the back, they make this deal with cigars. Hey, buddy, let's do this. We're going to go out and let's make sure you give a good acting job in that thing. And let's make sure to present to us, the public, like there's a rift. Answer this question. If you have a rift with somebody, do you sneak around? Do you sneak around accountability to get that person some more money and weapons? Is that what you do? Or is that what you do when you're in lockstep with genocide Israel and you're just projecting in the public that you're not? Let's continue. May have belabored the point.
It's a very tricky problem. First of all, I think
now anytime a pundit comes on and he asks a question and the person doesn't answer the question in affirmative, that means it's a no. There's nothing he can do. You see how he said it's a very tricky. That means it's nothing he can do. Let's let him finish.
President Biden is conducting his foreign policy on foreign policy grounds. He's not conducting his Israel policy as an election issue. I think he actually cares about the issue and is trying to do what he thinks is best, whether it's right or wrong. Second of all, but
this is something they always try to do. As you're committing a genocide, you want to say to me he believes he's on the right side. He believes he's doing the right thing, right or wrong. Not good enough, sir.
But
you understand, they say that as to be some sort of honorable thing. He's not doing this out of malice. It's not genocide out of malice.
analyzing it politically, he's in a vice, because to the extent he moves closer to what the base wants, he moves further from what the center wants. So he really is facing demands to move further from the center of public opinion on political grounds. So I'm not really sure there is a political solution for him, except to the extent that he can actually put this war to rest
and pretending that there's a public feud with Netanyahu is that putting to rest, because they've already asked him to bring this to a close so that they can move this out of the news cycle. This story of Israel in occupied Palestine committing a genocide needs to get out of the news cycle. As long as it remains in a news cycle, Joe Biden is going to remain under 35% in the approval rating, just based off of young voters and people of color. They need to move this out of the news cycle, but the best next thing, if it's going to stay in a news cycle, it needs to be the news cycle of I'm fighting against Netanyahu and this genocide.
And get it out of the headlines and get it, out of people's heads and get them focusing more on issues where I think he has a more solid chance of unifying his coalition.
All right, New York Magazine's Jonathan Chait, thank you very much for your insight.
Let's get to, oh, shoot. The next thing I want to get to is student loan forgiveness, because where did I have it on? I think I had it on Inside. Was it Inside Politics? Let me see if it was Inside Politics. Anyway, I'm trying to remember, because this particular part I want to show you on student loan is not not Inside Edition, Inside Politics. Is not a clip. It is from TV. They're probably not going to clip this, or if they have, I haven't seen it yet. But it speaks about student loan forgiveness and how Joe Biden has just set up another round of student loan forgiveness. But the segment is about, is this going to be enough for young voters? And they're being very honest about how this is literally, he's doing this to try to get young voters. So let's see here. Oh. Hang on a second, everybody. There's a couple of things that's breaking today. Tim Scott, let me just tell you this breaking news before I get to the thing. Tim Scott, the guy who was in the race for president, he has endorsed Donald Trump. The guy has endorsed Donald Trump. Let's see here. Okay, I think I found it. All right, sorry for the brief delay. But I believe I found it here. So here is Inside Edition, student loan forgiveness segment. I'm going to do one check really quick to see if they cut it, because now that I think about it, they may have cut the clip because it is student loan forgiveness and they want to make it seem like Joe Biden is doing a lot on it. So let's see if they cut it. That'll make it a lot easier for me if they have. But they have not. So, no, they have not. All right, so we'll just use this. It's fine that we use this, but Campaign. Let's go back a little bit here. Oh, wow. All right, I think it's right about here.
Announcements really please those voters and excite them in the same way that that initial announcement would.
Oh,
Yeah, that's such a good point.
my bad, everybody, because that guy is making a point that I'm gonna end on. So I got my numbers backwards here. I got my end number is the actually beginning number. All right, so now I have it in the right place here, and now we can begin. Here we go.
Announced another round of student loan forgiveness today. The action will forgive $5 billion in student loans for 74,000 borrowers. That brings total student debt forgiveness under the Biden administration to over $137 billion for more than 3.7 million borrowers. I want to get back to our panel to discuss this and other information regarding the Biden reelection effort. MJ Lee joins the panel now. MJ, we're going to get to your new reporting in 1 second, but let's just stay on this announcement from the Biden administration and just talk for a second about how it plays into the very important yet very fragile coalition that he needs to keep intact in order to win re-election. And one of the questions is about on student loans and young people and getting them excited. And because it's been there have been lots of hurdles, let's say, in getting the student loan forgiveness promise actually to the finish line, I want to listen to some voters in Nevada. They're swing voters, and this is part of what they were talking about. They are Trump to Biden voters from back in 2020.
At first, I heard him say a lot of things that he was going to be doing, and even with the student loans and stuff. And he has somewhat, but it hasn't, for a lot of people, his promises have not come forth.
He's definitely made improvements to student loans. I know not as much as some people feel, but there definitely have been people who have gotten their student loan debt erased.
Biden really agonized over this decision initially for student loan forgiveness. I reported at the time that his top aides were presenting data that said, look, on one hand, you know, we don't want to alienate sort of the working class. And, you know, you've framed yourself as Amtrak Joe and protecting sort of the sanctity of labor. But on the other hand, former chief of staff Frank Lane was saying, look, this could really galvanize young voters here. It was also policy-wise meant to be a part of sort of a racial equity agenda as well, and aimed at galvanizing Black voters, voters of color as well here. And now sort of the challenge is you had that really sprawling announcement of student loan forgiveness, which obviously hit roadblocks in the courts. And now you kind of have a piecemeal approach of trying to forgive loan here and there. But you raised expectations so much amongst the voting blocks that I just described. Will these announcements really please those voters? And
that's the question right there. And when he made the announcement of student loan forgiveness, everybody was on that. I remember Bree was doing segments on that, 2 or 3 every single week on the Hill. We were covering some of them. Student loan forgiveness was a hot topic. Right around, was it November, September, right before the midterms. I don't want to give a date. Right before the midterms. And it fell apart soon thereafter because it was designed to fall apart because he never wanted to have to forgive it. He then later signed a deal as part of one of either the debt ceiling or extending the debt ceiling or something like that. As part of that deal, he also agreed never to pause the student loan. So he can't pause it. And the court already said he couldn't forgive it under the clause that he was trying to forgive it. So now he's having to do this piecemeal thing that is literally not getting the same effect as the bigger everything together. And understand this little bit of forgiveness. Let me put the number up here. 170 137 billion in loan forgiveness. Now I think I know one person, Colin from Indie News, that's the only person who I personally have heard and said, hey, I've gotten this money forgiven. Student loan forgiveness. Let's see what was promised. Biden promised. Let's see what was promised though, because it was that 2020 when he promised that? I think it was 2020 when he promised that. All right, so let's look at this. I do have one here. Let me go to this NPR article. Let's go to this NPR article here, just to look at it. This headline. Right. Yeah. Biden pledged to forgive $10,000 in student loan debt. Now, this is after he didn't fulfill the original agreement. Because now they're saying this is NPR. They're not telling the full story. It says on the trail, Biden had pledged to cancel at least $10,000 of student debt per person. And this is March 2020 that they're making, showing you the tweets. Biden has focused on pre-existing forgiveness programs. They go into, again, this is before he actually put forth the forgiveness. I just wanted to show you the headline, $10,000 student loan debt per student. I remember $50,000, and I remember an amount for HSBUs, historically Black colleges, that he never did. So just understand, 137 billion still is not close to being enough, or at least to what he had promised originally. I don't mean the updated promises. I mean the original promises. But let's finish this part.
Forgiveness under the Biden administration.
Actually, let me fast forward back to where I was here. This guy speaking. Right here.
As Amtrak Joe and protecting sort of the sanctity of labor. But on the other hand, former Chief of Staff Ron Klain was saying, look, this could really galvanize young voters here. It was also policy-wise meant to be a part of sort of a racial equity agenda as well, and aimed at galvanizing Black voters, voters of color as well here. And now sort of the challenge is you had that really sprawling announcement of student loan forgiveness, which obviously hit roadblocks in the courts. And now you kind of have a piecemeal approach of trying to forgive loan here and there. But you raised expectations so much amongst the voting blocs that I just described. Will these announcements really please those voters and excite them in the same way that that initial announcement would?
Yeah, that's such a good point. Casey, before we get to MJ's reporting, I want to just put one more bit of this focus group from Richard Thaw, which is always great to have. This specifically is on the economy and how people are feeling about it.
Rentals have gone up. Senior housing has gone up. People who have to sell their house or want to sell or want to be relocated cannot do it right now unless they take a loss. It hits every way of life, not just grocery stores, but all these other major expenses that people have.
I feel the real problem is that we don't get to see things on the bottom line of it all. Like when we go to the grocery stores, when we go to the gas pumps, we're not seeing those. The savings aren't coming over to us.
I got a text with a story for the Wall Street Journal today from somebody in Biden world saying that voters are starting to feel the economy. I mean, this is really.
I got that same text.
Did you really?
Yeah, they're having a real problem trying to sell Bidenomics because it's a joke. But the point has already been made about the student loan forgiveness. So the question I present to people, progressives, young people, is forgiving your student loan debt, is that a good exchange for your vote? Because to me, for your vote for 2024. Now, it's a good exchange for your vote in 2020. So if you voted for Biden and now you're receiving student loan payments, understand you don't owe a future vote. He is paying you what he owes you from your last vote, the last time you supported him. This money that you're given, this 137, that's for 2020. I'm sorry, that's for 2020. I said 2020. That's for 2020. Okay, let's get to the next part here. So we covered the student loan forgiveness, and now let's cover this other part. It's another part of the Morning Joe. Okay, here we go. Now I can see where I'm at. So let's go back to Twitter. And there's one other Morning Joe clip, and I think it's also from the same episode. So they were on fire talking about nonsense on this episode. But let's look at it here. Morning Joe clip. Okay, so I know which one. I had to look at my notes to see which one it was. Where is it? Where is it? That one. Is it this one? Bear with me 1 second, everybody. Oh, that's the Palestinian. Oh, you guys are right here watching it with me. I forgot you have the screen on. I'm trying to remember. Oh, right here. Honest with the workers. Okay, yeah. My bad, everybody. Here we go with some of the content that I wanted to show you now. Is there honest with workers? I'm missing one video. One video I'm missing. This one. Morning Joe. Biden in the vase. One second, everybody. I misplaced one video. We're gonna play that too, Mark Lamont. So what I'll do is just go to case study QB. Maybe misplaced it somewhere. Let's go to case studies page and just get the video directly. Now, who I'm looking for is a particular guest he had on the show, and when I show you the video, here it goes right here. It's the first video. Oh, actually, it wasn't on my account. It was on the RBN account, and I missed it. So this is what I was looking for. I thought I had tweeted it out, but I tweeted it out from the main account. All right, here is the video, and we shall play it and listen. I think it's self-explanatory.
Why is it the left, progressives, whatever they're calling themselves these days, they've forgotten the story that was right in the palm of their hand? And the story is they should ask themselves perhaps.
Actually, let me preface this particular clip a little bit better. So when we're talking about supporting a Democratic Party, we're talking about workers. That's the phrasing I use when we're talking about all of this is workers versus owners. The reason I say the Democratic Party is not the party for workers is because they explicitly say things that say that they're not a party of workers. And I'm going to show this video along with another video from Michael Brooks and Vivek Chabar, where they talk about this topic of the Democratic Party and the American left actually being representatives for workers, and are they good representatives? So let's examine or let's listen to this video and hear him talk about. He has asked a question. The guy you see on the screen, he has asked a question. His name is Anand Gurharadas. He's asked a question. Why isn't the left? So what they do is they bring on these pseudo left people and they bring them on to represent the left point of view, and then they ask him these questions. So they're asking him, why isn't the left falling in line because of all of the historical things that the Democratic Party has delivered? In other words, based on all the historical things that the Democrats has done, the left should automatically be falling in line for the Democratic Party. That's essentially what the question is, but let's listen to the whole clip.
Why is it the left, progressives, whatever they're calling themselves these days, they've forgotten the story that was right in the palm of their hand? And the story is they should ask themselves perhaps these questions, some of these questions. Who built your party? Who formed the spine of your party? Who fought for your country? Who comes down the street to put out your fires? Who comes down the street to protect your house and your children from vandals, from hoodlums? Who did this? Who built the foundation for the house and the country that you live in?
Slaves?
They've forgotten those people.
You talking about slaves?
Those people are the core of a movement that lasted for 50 years, that formed the New Deal, that created Social Security, workmen's compensation, the GI Bill, all the things that built the middle class. And the progressives today, no time for them.
Well, I think the Democratic Party, and this has happened in the UK, in a lot of places around the world, center-left parties used to be labor parties, whether in name or in fact. That was the galvanizing force. That was the organizing force. That was the force multiplication in the field, labor unions. And then labor unions were decimated by the ascendancy of the Reaganite right, and membership tanked. And so a giant kind of strike force in politics that did that work is gone. And in that vacuum, center-left parties, including the Democratic Party, became much more and more academia-adjacent parties, dominated by debates over terminology. Some of these debates are very, very important. Don't get me wrong.
We're having a bigger debate about the Harvard presidency than we are about middle-class people.
Right. That's the kind, right? It's not about who's right in that Harvard debate. It's just like, why are we even talking about Harvard? It's the wrong conversation, right? And we're not talking about making factories safer for people who work there. And so one of the things that the Inc. we're doing this year is trying to step back and look at these bigger questions of why we are in a situation where American autocracy is even possible. And I think one of the things we've looked at in this interview with Ruth Ben-Ghiat I had yesterday and Daniel Ziblatt last week is, does the Democratic Party need to recenter itself as a union-based party, particularly in a moment when there's a labor resurgence and real victories happening there, and be less of an academia adjacent party, less interested in these tedious hair-splitting debates and more rooted in worker movements?
Okay, so it's good and bad. He again, these pseudo-left people have a very good way of getting it right up until a certain point, you know what I mean? And then getting the rest of it wrong. But I let it all play. That's what we're trying to do now. Let it play all the way through. Then we go back and break it down. So let's break it down.
Why is it the left, progressives, whatever they're calling themselves these days, they've forgotten the story that was right in the palm of their hand? And the story is they should ask themselves perhaps these questions, some of these questions. Who built your party? Who formed the spine of your party? Who fought for your country? Who comes down the street to put out your fires? Who comes down the street to protect your house and your children from vandals, from hoodlums? Who did this? Who built the foundation for the house and the country that you live in? They've forgotten those people. Those people are the core of a movement that lasted for 50 years, that formed the New Deal, that created Social Security, workmen's compensation, the GI Bill, all the things that built the middle class. And the progressives today, no time for them.
Well, I think the Democratic Party, and this has happened in the UK, in a lot of places around the world, center-left parties used to be labor parties, whether in name or in fact. That was the galvanizing force. That was the organizing force. That was the force multiplication in the field, labor unions. And then labor unions were decimated by the ascendancy of the Reaganite.
Yes, then they start tearing down unions. Like it was a real PR battle. I remember it was the late 80s. I was a kid, so late 80s, early mid 80s, something like that. It was just a lot of rhetoric I remember hearing in the news. Unions are bad, unions this, unions that. So it was a real attack on it. And we all know about Bill Clinton leaving behind the working class, leaving behind unions in order to make a deal with suburban white moms. So
right, and membership tanked, and so a giant kind of strike force in politics that did that work is gone. And in that vacuum, center-left parties, including the Democratic Party, became much more and more academia-adjacent parties.
Right. Academia-adjacent parties. So now let's go to this video. I think I have it queued up in the right place, because I haven't shown this video in a while, but it is still a classic, and I found it on when we covered it. So we're gonna do it here. I found it when Nick and I covered on the Nick and CJ show, but I do want to play it because I think it's worth hearing. Let me see if I got it in the right place here. Okay, so I think I have it in the right place. Let's listen.
So socialism basically can be thought of as saying, we want to take the promise that liberals made, that Kant made, and that Hegel made, and we want to make it real. Now, the liberalism that you talk about, Michael, when you say there's a lot of liberalism within the left today, I would not call it that. So the identitarian stuff that you talk about, the narrowness, that is not an ideological hangover of liberalism. That is a very, very active set of people pushing their material interests. Right. The left in the United States is fundamentally and overwhelmingly a middle-class formation. It is not it's the first left globally, historically, that has no connection to the working, to the poor at all.
Overwhelmingly a middle-class formation and has no connection to the working class at all. This is what the guy in the Morning Joe clip, the MSNBC clip, is referring to when he says that the left or the Democratic Party is largely academia, is largely middle class, and without a connection to the working class. And that's what he was saying in that Morning Joe video, is that the Democratic Party has to go back to being a party of the unions. But let's let Vivek, and that's who this is. Vivek is on the right, Michael Brooks is on the left. Let's let him finish out this point. I rewind it a little bit and then let him finish out the point.
The left in the United States is fundamentally and overwhelmingly a middle-class formation. It is not it's the first left globally, historically, that has no connection to the working, to the poor at all. People.
Okay, I had to pause it there because it has no connection whatsoever to the working class. Think about that, everybody in the audience. Think about that. No connection. There's a left that has defined itself as the left without any connection to the working class. This is why you can be called a leftist, which is, Medicare for all, $15 minimum wage. Give me my Malcolm X stamp, please. It is specifically for this reason. It's like a redefinition of the left that excludes imperialism, that excludes war, that excludes all of these things. This is why you can be nuanced on war. Anti-war, yes, and I'm down with us sending 100 billion to Ukraine, and I'm called anti-war. Like, it's that sort of thing because there's no connection to the working class, to the poor. Let me finish this out, and then we can kind of finish.
People complain that the left is white. Bullshit. That's a second. The left has those non-whites who are in the American left are all middle class too. It's disproportionately white, but it's all middle class.
Now listen to this part coming up.
In that setting, when you're only bringing in middle class people into your organization, a big chunk of them are going to say, we don't want to hear about poverty. We don't want to hear about the economy. What we want to know is, when we walk into a room, why are we not treated well?
Isn't that exactly the issue we're having with the left? They don't want to talk about the Nazis in Ukraine. They don't want to talk about Genocide Joe being complicit in this genocide. They don't want to talk about minimum wage. They don't want to talk about, they want to talk about, any number of culture war sort of issues. I don't want to have to pick one and exclude others, but you get the point. Let's let it finish out.
When we apply for the salaried positions at six-figure
committee seat,
we have the right to. Why do we get 5% less than the other guys?
Right.
Middle class on the left wants to hear about it. It will dress it up in all sorts of historically powerful language and all that.
Isn't that what's happening, or what has happened, for example, with the Harvard thing? And I'll go back to the clip, because now that we see Vivek and Michael Brooks, let's go back to... Did I close that? Oh man, maybe I closed it. Oh, I guess I closed it. I was gonna go back to oh, actually no, it's on X, my bad. We're gonna go back to this clip right here. My bad, everybody. I was thinking this was on live TV, but it's a clip. So now let's let him finish out what he was saying here.
Or in fact, that was the galvanizing force. That was the organizing force. That was the force multiplication in the field, labor unions. And then labor unions were decimated by the ascendancy of the Reaganite right, and membership tanked. And so a giant kind of strike force in politics that did that work is gone. And in that vacuum, center-left parties, including the Democratic Party, became much more and more academia-adjacent parties, right, dominated by debates over terminology. Some of these debates are very, very important. Don't get me wrong.
We're having a bigger debate about the Harvard presidency than we are about middle-class people.
Right. That's the kind, right? It's not about who's right in that Harvard debate. It's just like, why are we even talking about it?
You see how the guy didn't even get it. He's trying to explain it to him. You're not grounded in worker talk, what workers want, what workers are into. And he's saying and proving it is the Harvard thing. The guy's like, yeah, who's right or wrong on Harvard, right? That's what proves. No. Why are we even talking about Harvard? Like, he didn't even get it at first. He had to say, now he said it in a nice way. He's like, well, why are we even talking about that? So let me let him make.
It's not about who's right in that Harvard debate. It's just like, why are we even talking about Harvard? It's the wrong conversation.
Yeah, he doesn't get it. The other
we're
guy
not talking about making factories safer for people who work there. And so one of the things that the Inc. we're doing.
This is such a good point. And it speaks to why you should not, as a worker, want to vote for this party that clearly just virtue signals about your policy beliefs that you aspire or you want, but they're never going to do. Just because this is the reason I say this is such a good point, because he's saying Right now, you're in a debate fighting over Harvard. This lady in academia. And he's saying we shouldn't even be talking about that. The average worker's not talking about that. They're talking about their paycheck. They're talking about their bills. They're talking about gas. But you see, back to the Michael Brooks video, academia, middle class, they don't want to hear about that. You know what they're talking about in their circles with their college degrees? They're talking about another college degree, another person with a college degree not getting their just due, aka the Harvard thing. So this is a great point to insert here. All right, so now we're gonna go through some sort of quick videos. First one being the Majority Report video. So let's start here. Some of you may have seen this in previous segment, but it is a short video and it fits to what we're talking about here. Where did I put that? So let's go to it. It is under receipts. So let's go. I gotta go all the way down, everybody. Wow, yeah, I got a lot. Morning. Where did I put that video? Oh, right here. Click the workers. All right, so this is where we're starting. I kind of have it already set up in order. And now I kind of want to dive a little bit more deeper in being honest to workers. And that's really what, that's what part of this stream is about. And when I say this is the case against the Democratic Party, this is RBN being honest with workers about the Democratic Party. So where's that banner for that? Right here. We must be honest with workers about the Democratic Party. And let's go through a couple of quick hitting receipts. This first one is from the Majority Report, and let's play.
It is deleterious, according to him, to have progressives in the Democratic Party because it gives people hope that the Democratic Party can be reformed, and he doesn't want that.
He doesn't want that. I would rephrase it to say he understands that that's not going to happen. It is counterproductive to have leftists in the Democratic Party. It is counterproductive because it does give the illusion that you have somebody working in the inside when you do not. That is a correct assessment. So what's dumb about that? Let's pause here and ask a couple of things. What's dumb about not supporting the Democratic Party that funds genocides, that is corporately bought? Like, what's dumb about that? Like, literally the same. Understand where I say what's dumb about not supporting a party that funds genocide. This video was done over a year ago, before the current genocide. I wish we had a conversation going on during that time to find out if genocide would be somebody's red line in the pseudo left, the NATO left. Because you got to get them to give you their red lines before they happen. Now, genocide would not be their red line. Sam Cedar has already said it in a more current video where he says that he's going to vote for Joe Biden. Vote for Genocide Joe, basically. Let's continue with the video. I would say 80% of the reason you say, most of the liberals say they don't support Republicans, 80%, Democrats do the same thing. Very, very true. So that is Sam Cedar making the
on
point
Tucker Carlson show
about, and I believe it was Jimmy Dore. He's saying Jimmy Dore saying that having leftists in government is counterproductive, and I'm agreeing with the point. I'll give further sort of explanation. If you have somebody, if people believe that AOC, Bernie Sanders is in there working for them, then those same people won't work as hard to get things done because they have a representative doing the work for them. So it's kind of disarming to have somebody in a space projecting that they're there, doing your policy work when they're not. So we can go that way, or we can say it this way, and I would say it more this way. We don't have people who are on the left in the Democratic Party. We have people who are neoliberals who pretend that they have policy beliefs that align with the left. That is AOC. That is Ilhan Omar. That is, I mean, you can't say that's not a correct description as they vote to send money to Ukraine, as they vote for the Iron Dome, as they vote for supporting Israel. You can't say that that's not the case. Let's move on to the next item here in our being honest with the workers and the illusion of hope, I guess you can say also. So this next one is a video on, are the Democrats executing progressive plans or Democratic plans? So if you're a progressive, if you're a person who wants to vote for the Democratic Party, this is the question, or this is a video that you must see. And now I forget the debate. I was debating somebody, and they were saying, "Oh, I'm voting in AOC because their policy beliefs align with mine." And my response was this video is, why does it matter who you're voting in, what their policy beliefs are? Doesn't it matter what the Democratic Party's beliefs? Aren't they executing the party's belief? They're not executing AOC's belief. If you voted for AOC, if you voted for Jamal Bowman, he aligns with my beliefs. Is the Democratic Party executing Jamal Bowman's beliefs or their donors' beliefs? So let's listen to this video, then we'll move on to the next one here. Is the Democratic establishment, the Democratic Party, are they executing the Progressive Caucus's plans? Are they executing the Squad's plans? Are they executing Pramila Jayapal's plans, Jamal Bowman's plans, AOC's plans? Or are they executing Nancy Pelosi's plan given to her by corporate America? So you could tell me you believe in healthcare, but your team doesn't. Nancy Pelosi just came out and said defund the police is not the position of the Democratic Party. So then, as a black person, I would ask you, are you joining a team that's against defund the police candidate? Because if that's what you're doing, I can't fuck with you. That's the question I would ask. Because why would I help you join a team that's killing my community? Why would I do that? As someone who has solidarity with the Palestinians, why would I give you money to join a team that's bombing Palestinians, killing kids, women? This video is about a year old, more than that. Aged pretty well. Because we posed the same question. Even then, before the genocide. We're posing, RBN and Nick and Sabi, we were posing the same questions, having the same hurdles, but you guys thought that, it's a single issue, Palestine. Remember that? All right, so let's move on to the, oops, I hit that mic. let's move on to the next video. The next video is this one here. And what are my notes for this one? Let's go to now this video with Jan Perlman and Nina Turner, where they're discussing the slur of online left. It means, in other words, the dumb worker, people who don't have credentials. That's what they use, the online left. And nihilists. Let's listen to this video when Nina Turner was on their show. Let's listen.
And I think that that speaks very directly to one of the biggest issues that we saw, during a race, especially in the home stretch, which is the worst time to have, this dissension, if you will. You already have enough with the millions of dollars in the horrific ads that they were playing. The billboard, we remember that we saw when we were in Cleveland, calling you an anti-Semite and all that stuff. But then you have the other part of the equation, which is a sort of nihilistic movement with the online left that thinks that you can never do enough. I mean, I try to tell people you invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in a television ad in the Cleveland metro area saying that you support Medicare for all, and yet it wasn't enough that you did that. It's like, no, you have to come here and do this and that. And I'm just thinking there's too much of this. There's this huge problem on the left where there's this idea that I would rather be right than be effective. And that is something that I say this to anybody who's going to see this interview, and we know a lot of you will. So think about what that means in terms of what you want to accomplish going forward. If you have any aspirations of Medicare for all, a living wage, ending the wars, a Green New Deal, then you're going to have to swallow your pride in some instances and recognize that you're not going to get everything you want at once, but so long as the person in question is fighting on the side of workers and not corporate special interests, that is the winning play, period. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that, because that was something that really set us off.
No, I'm so sick of the purists. I'm so sick of them, the over woke, damn purists. Like, if you don't agree with me, you say one thing, and then I'm going to keep these.
We were purists on Palestine. RBN are purists on Palestine, like what you call purists first. Let me not say that, but we were purists on that. Now, guess what? If you guys, the progressive Democrats, were purists on Palestine, where would we be right now? If you were purists like us, what we have 30,000 dead people in Palestine right now. If you were purists like us and stood on your ground with Palestine and didn't back down and didn't vote for somebody who would do something like that, I would say being a purist in this context would be a great thing. But let's let her finish out this video here.
Side of workers and not corporate special interests. That is the winning play, period. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that, because that was something that really set us off.
No, I'm so sick of the purists. I'm so sick of them, the over woke, damn purists. Like, if you don't agree with me, you say one thing, and then I'm going to keep these are people that are bitter. They decide they don't like you, and then they use everything to work backwards from their conclusion, and they will find every little nitpicky thing. That's not on my team. Like, you're not working on our team. You're not seeking progress.
Well, to be fair, they're not on our team right now. That doesn't mean they couldn't ultimately be.
You're displaying behavior that is not team-like.
He's the one who reels her insanity back. Come back. You do want them in the future, so bring the insanity. Bring it down. Let me break down the first part of this video, and we'll move on.
And I think that speaks very directly to one of the biggest issues that we saw, during a race, especially in the home stretch, which is the worst time to have, this dissension, if you will. You already have enough with the millions of dollars in the horrific ads that they were playing. The billboard, we remember that we saw when we were in Cleveland, calling you an anti-Semite and all that stuff. But then you have the other part of the equation, which is a sort of nihilistic movement with the online left that thinks that you can never do enough.
Understand that anyone who uses the term online left is a part of the bourgeoisie class. That is meant to be a slur. Instead of saying dumb worker, uneducated person, you say online, meaning you're just a person online. You don't have any other sort of credentials. I don't need to listen to what you're saying because you're just online. It is meant as a slur. Now let's get to this because they're talking about nihilism in the context of Nina Turner, because Nina Turner lost again, and they're saying, you know, people didn't come out for her. That's basically the argument that they're making, is that they didn't come out for her because of nihilism. And what I would say to that is, if the, or I'm not going to say if, the expectation is that the Democrats can continue not to deliver and you to continue to support them. That's what progressive Democrats are begging all of us to do. Because, I mean, is that not? They're not doing anything on minimum wage. They're not doing anything on Palestine. They didn't do anything $15 minimum wage. Didn't do anything on climate change, but they're asking for your vote continuously. But let's continue to move on. I'll keep my comments short so we can get through some of this stuff here. So we got through that one. This next part here is, now you might, another argument can be for those Democrats who are saying, now let's vote for Joe Biden. Now is the time, and if you vote for us this time, we're gonna do something about said issue. Let's address that with this video right here, because it wasn't too long ago, I'm old enough to remember that they just had the House, the Senate, and the executive branch. Let's listen to this video. They keep asking for your vote, telling you they're going to deliver this time. Yeah, I know all the other, cajillion times I didn't do it, but this time it's going to be different. Really? This time is going to be different. Are we still falling for this? Even after they are in power. This is what's so almost like I feel sorry for this attempt to elect some of these non-corporate Democrats, because you have people, your team is in power now, and it's terrible. You have enough progressives in office right now to affect most of the legislation that is voted on. What are they doing but voting present? That's who you want to donate your money to? You want to donate your money to somebody who's going to vote present? Or let's say they don't. What good is it that the person you voted in votes no on everything that you want to vote no on, but it passes by the team that the person you voted for is on? What does that mean? You voted in a good person on a terrible team, but the terrible team is winning. And we're seeing in this point that's made in this video, I can move on. You're not for a genocide, right, voter? But you voted in, but you supported the Democratic Party, who are now in doing things you don't want to have done. So again, what benefit do you get out of voting for Joe Biden? It's actually the opposite. It's not like you're voting and everything's neutral. You're voting for him and they're doing things against what your policy beliefs are, like a genocide in Palestine. But let's continue. Now let's go to this video with Nina Turner. And this is Nina Turner's bowl of shit comment. She refers to it in this video here. It's about a minute, a little more over a minute.
You gotta make a choice. Listen. I get it. Between a neo-fascist and a neoliberal. So I likened it to, and this is how I describe it. You got two bowls of shit in front of you. And you got to pick one. That's the situation we in right now. Bowl number one or bowl number two. But the rules of engagement are you got to pick one. The way for us not to have to continuously always choose between the lesser of the two evils is to do a new thing and make a new demand. Or we will find ourselves right back in this moment again with people fear-mongering about how you got to vote for them because the other one is worse. Now, in this case, Donald Trump is a threat, no doubt about it. But we need leaders who have vision to provide provision for the people and not just scare tactics to get us to vote for one candidate over another. What is your vision for this country? How you gonna lift people? What is gonna be different under you? Because I know some people feel like they got nothing to lose. They've been catching hell the whole entire time. And basically the people in the streets in my community, they're basically saying, what's a few more years of hell?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, we're not scared of a Trump presidency no more. Like, Trump derangement syndrome, it so does not work. You see that in the polls. If Trump derangement syndrome worked, he wouldn't be winning in 6 to 8 battleground states. Do you understand? I don't think there was a single poll that Donald Trump led ever outside of the margin of error in 2020. Meanwhile, he's already hit like a dozen, if you include the 6 to 8 battleground states and several national polls. So let it play all the way through. Now let's break it down.
You got to make a choice. I get it. Between a neo-fascist and a neoliberal. So I likened it to, and this is how I describe it. You got 2 bowls of shit in front of you. And you got to pick one. That's the
Let me let her finish.
situation we in right now. Bowl number 1 or bowl number 2. But the rules of engagement are you got to pick one.
Then this is why a radical is needed. Because what does a radical not care about? Your fucking rules of engagement. See, if you have a NATO left, if you have a pseudo left person, they'll go, okay, those are the rules. All right, am I supposed to stay in the lines? No, sir. Ma'am, when I arrive and you present 2 bowls of shit, guess what I'm going to do? I'm knocking both bowls over. I'm not taking either one. I'm not falling in line at all. I'm creating my own shit. You get it? You get that joke? Creating my own shit? But yeah, this is why. Actually, I'm not gonna say it that way. Let's let her continue.
The way for us not to have to continuously always choose between the lesser of the 2 evils is to do a new thing and make a new demand. Or we will find ourselves right back in.
Or don't vote red or blue, or exit the duopoly. Exit the duopoly, and you never have to pick between 2 bowls of shit. Think of that. Think of it that way. If you vote green, vote for Jill Stein, not a bowl of shit. If you vote for Dr. West, not a bowl of shit. And if you're voting for RFK Jr., that means you like him, and for some reason. So in your opinion, you're not voting for a bowl of shit. I would not vote for RFK or any other independent. There's a couple of other independent candidates. Oh, Claudia. Not picking a bowl of shit. So you see how you don't have to pick a bowl of shit. The people who are telling you these are your only 2 options aren't telling you about all your options. And let's continue with the videos to the next one. And that's this one. You see all of us here, Sabby, JB. This video, JB explains what the fight is really about. What defines a victory? How we can be winning as a movement even if we're not winning policy demands every time. How do you define that? And JB is going to define that right now. They aren't proving that the strategy of electing non-corporate Democrats work. And that's the problem for the candidates right now, is that the squad is literally like tearing down any paths for any other progressives to get there right now in this specific, maybe in another election, but in 2022, I'm not sure. JB, what do you think about that?
Okay, so the problem with us isn't I think they're trying to get as many victories as possible. And to us, the victory's in the fight. So it's just like, we don't care if you lose as long as you fight.
Right.
Including against your party. If you went down swinging, it's like, we'll be behind you. Be like, yes, you went down swinging. Good. You went up against them. Like, even if Forced to Vote failed, we would still be behind. How many of us would still be behind them if Forced to Vote actually happened? Even if they failed, we would still be like, yeah, we got some G's in the house. Let's go. You know, let's just get more of them. And then we would be like that.
And then they will be able to promote these candidates. Look, we just need a few more. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, CJ. But that's the thing. We don't see the fight. And that's part of the problem. It's like, they're like, we're going to fight against the Democratic Party. And then next thing you know, they run away. And it's like, why are you running? You guys said that you guys wanted to fight. And that's one of the things that I think that's part of one of the reasons why a lot of us are just like, the hell with them, because we see them as, you know, like people in the country say, yellow belly.
That's JB with the great analogies, yellow belly. But the point of this, the major point that he made here is that the victory is in the fight. That's the victory. And it's such a point that misses the professional managerial class, misses academia. The victory is in the fighting part. But Shama Sawant understands this, and she understood this very well up there in Seattle, is that the fight is what inspires people. The fight. You don't have to have wins. That's such a professional managerial class thing where I got to have a plaque to show I completed something. I need a diploma. I need a degree. I need something to indicate I have completed a process. That's what they need. And they're willing to get anything, any little crumb. I'm completed. Here's my, participation award and crumbs. And we're saying the fight is the victory. And if you continue to fight, you're inevitably, in our opinion, to win. You may not win them all. All right, and let's go to this one with Nick. This is a great one with Nick. I'm gonna play nothing, no explanation needed. But you see our old name, Fred Hampton Leftist. You see the little banner in the top right-hand corner. That's our old logo, Fred Hampton Leftist. Let's continue.
I said it before my show. I didn't bear repeating. Fuck your unity. I want solidarity. Now, if you're okay with the squad funding the police more, that means you are not standing in solidarity with our community. That means you are demanding us to unify with people who don't have our best interests at heart. How are you any different than the white martyr that MLK has been warning us about? You are the white martyr MLK warned about. Geoff, Vosh, Humanist Report, TYT, all these people who had anything negative to say about this march. You are the white martyr that MLK warned us about. And yes, I'm calling you out because I see this class divide on the left. These are people, and I notice this. These are the people who are super obsessed with theory. You see these people? Oh, you read this theory? You read this book, man? I didn't become a leftist through theory. I became a leftist because I live this shit. And there are people who they are so busy theorizing. They're like, oh, you gotta look at this theory. You gotta read what this person said, man. You gotta talk. You see what this person said. You gotta compare that to the other theory because it's just a game to them. It's just a book. It's just theories to them. Because at the end of the day, they'd be fine. At the end of the day, these people will be okay. So it's all about just theory for them. So they can't possibly wrap their mind around people like us, people who will actually die if these progressive policies don't get implemented. Why we are so upset at these politicians. So it's really just a class analysis that so many people on the left is not even acknowledging. They just say this is drama. Oh, there's left infighting and there's a lot of drama. No, it's not. And I've been talking about this. The left drama is literally the people who are loyal to the politicians who are mad at us for calling the politicians out. That's it. If you don't believe me, name one giant left debate that started outside of the guys, the people getting mad because we criticize our politicians. Forced to vote, marching for Medicare for all, whether we vote for Joe Biden or not. All of these left divisions are caused because people are still in love with electoral politics in the Democratic Party, and they are mad at people who are not.
Not mad at people who are not. They're mad at the post-duopolists because they need us to win these elections. You saw that with the Nina Turner election, and you're seeing it in the polling, at least with Joe Biden right now. But this is a fire video. It's a video we used to tweet all the time from Nick.
I said it before my show.
Now let's go to this video with David Sirota. And this is the progressive Democratic perspective, the Justice Democratic perspective that tries to talk us into the lesser of two evils every year. But the question is now is how can you make that argument considering genocide in Palestine? How can you make that argument considering the deal that the Senate is trying to make with the White House on immigration, for example? Like, we're literally going backwards, and you're still trying to sell the Democratic Party as the party for the future, as the party that's going to get those things done as they participate in rights being removed, including abortion. They are complicit with that right being removed federally. But let's listen to David Sirota.
Yes, I've had moments where I'm like, you know what, I'm out. Like, I'm done. I hate this. I can't look at it every day. It's so nauseating. It's so pointless. And I have those days. And, and by the way, I don't begrudge people who say, look, I can't focus on this anymore. It's too depressing. I'm not saying like those people are bad. I get that impulse. But I also think and by the way, I also think just saying, oh, they're all corrupt. Nothing good can possibly happen. And anybody who's trying to work in that system, you must be corrupt or at least stupid by trying to fix things because the whole system is corrupt. Sort of the black pill idea. There's the blue pill, the red pill, and the black. I reject that too. You're not smarter by just walking away. You're not better than people by walking away. And by the way, you're not better than people by saying, anybody who's ever voted for a Democrat is supporting the duopoly. Here's the thing, the Democratic Party is super corrupt, but in the short term, right, in the context, for instance, of the reconciliation bill, all you have right now is a Democratic Party and a Republican Party in Congress. You've got to try to get, there's a climate crisis happening. It's a ticking time bomb. You have to try to get this horrible, corrupt system to try to do the right thing, stipulating that it is horrible, it's corrupt, the game is rigged. All of that stuff is stipulated, but walking away from it, or just sort of rolling your eyes and saying anybody who's even trying to participate in it is stupid, dumb, and or complicit. I just reject that. There's too much at stake. It doesn't mean don't hold, progressives accountable, right? The squad, the progressive members of Congress, they need to be held accountable to their promises to hold out. The corporate Democrats need to be held accountable. But the idea of just rolling your eyes and being they're all corrupt. Anybody trying to do any of that is fortifying the evil duopoly. No, the other way to look at it is yes, the duopoly is pathetic and terrible and corrupt, but it's what we have in the short term, right in the here and now. We're on a scientific, environmental ticking time bomb time scale here. And we've got to do anything that we can to make the system respond.
So that was hard to let all of that play because it's a lot of nonsense here. But let's go back and break it down. This is David Sirota trying to do his good sales pitch. He needs to stay with his day job, obviously, because this is a terrible job. He's a writer, by the way.
Yes, I've had moments where I'm like, you know what, I'm out. I'm done. I hate this. I can't look at it every day. It's so nauseating. It's so pointless. And I have those days. And and by the way, I don't begrudge people who say, look, I can't focus on this anymore. It's too depressing. I'm not saying those people are bad. I get that impulse, but I also think and by the way, I also think just saying, oh, they're all corrupt. Nothing good can possibly happen. And anybody who's trying to work in that system, you must be corrupt or at least stupid by trying to fix things because the whole.
I agree with that. And he further goes on and says, "You're not better than somebody who supports." I beg to differ. I absolutely view myself as a better person for not voting for genocide, Joe. I absolutely view myself as a better human for not voting for terrible Trump. I absolutely view myself as a better person than anyone voting to prop up either one of these corporate parties that's not doing anything for the worker. I absolutely believe I'm better than that and better than anybody who participates in that. And that includes some of my family who participates in voting for the Democratic Party, including them. I'm better just off of that, just off of not supporting a genocide, just off of not supporting a racist in Trump and or Joe Biden. So only people who are, let me just not say that. Let me go get back to the video.
The whole system is corrupt. Sort of the black pill idea. Like there's a blue pill, the red pill, and the black. Like I reject that too. Like you're not smarter by just walking away.
What he describes as walking away, they're framing it as you are walking away and not that the system has left you a long time ago. So you go to a phone booth. Now take me back. I'm going back. Phone booth. When you used to have phone booth, you go to a phone booth, you put money in, you dial the number, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. David Sirota saying, if you wait and nothing happens, and then you leave the phone booth, you're walking away. Not that the phone booth did not work for you. That's what David Sirota is trying to frame this as if you gave up, as if you can call it giving up after you've given this particular strategy a fifth try. We tried it in 16, tried it in 20, tried it with Barack Obama in 8, in 12. Because remember, he was presenting himself as a major leftist, as a populist. Turned out to be a damn liar. So you said it in 8, you said it in 12, you said it in 16, you said it in 20. You said it in 2000 because of George W. Bush. So after all of those instances, the W election, the 2 Obama elections, the first Trump election, I'm sorry, that was the first Trump election. But let him continue and I'll break down more.
Like you're not better than people by walking away. And by the way,
yes, I am.
People by saying, anybody who's ever voted for a Democrat is supporting the duopoly.
Not anybody who's ever. You see how he's moving the goalposts? The critique is you doing it now, and then he tried to include anybody ever. That's not the point, because typically somebody who's even telling you that, like a me or a Nick, used to vote Democrat. So it's now. Now let me get back and let him make his point.
Anybody who's ever voted for a Democrat is supporting the duopoly.
Anybody who's voting for the Democrat now is supporting the duopoly now.
Here's the thing, the Democratic Party is super corrupt. But in the short term, right, in the context, for instance, of the reconciliation bill, all you have right now is a Democratic Party and
they're super corrupt. All you have right now are super corrupt parties, and what? You need to pick one of the least super corrupt parties?
Republican Party in Congress. Like you've got to try to get, there's a climate.
Like he has nothing else. You notice he had nothing else? There's no other argument here. There's nothing to say about the Democratic Party. So what does he do? Climate change, climate change, climate change. And what did Joe Biden do with climate change? The IRA is not a climate bill. Oil permits, he's giving them out like Oprah's giving out cars. So what are you talking about? the climate crisis. The person person that you advocate is doing doing more against climate than not. The drilling plan that what's his name? Joe Manchin has been wanting to do for years, that finally got through on one of the deals that they set up. Willow Project approved. So you can take climate off of your list of arguments, sir.
Climate crisis happening. It's a ticking time bomb. Like you have to try to get this horrible, corrupt system to try to do the right thing, stipulating that it is horrible, it's corrupt, the game is rigged. All of that stuff is stipulated. But
how do you then participate in a horrible, corrupt, rigged system? People with college degrees, the professional managerial class, are telling us that's a good idea.
But like walking away from it, or just sort of rolling your eyes and saying anybody who's even trying to participate in it is stupid, dumb, and/or complicit. Like I just reject that.
So you're stupid, dumb, and complicit with genocide. If you supported Joe in 2020, you can't walk away from that. Like Ron was just saying the other day in stream, this is not a la carte. You can't say, oh, the stuff he does good, I take credit for that, but the other stuff I disagree. No. All right, so we're winding down here. Let me see. I think that's all in my notes here. Yeah, that's all that's in my notes. So now let's go to the let's see if there's any missing item I have here in this presentation. Got all those videos. So yeah, the final part, let me play this here because it's pretty. Listen to Joe Biden at a black church and listen to Hillary Clinton at a black church. And then we will discuss on the other side. This is the Democratic Party. And this is what they're doing to what they call, by their own description, as their most loyal base, and that is the black community. Let's listen to how, you tell me how seriously they're taking the black community here.
Nobody told me the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to.
Jackasses using like black vernacular, black church vernacular, black freedom fighter sort of vernacular when they go speak in front of black audiences. The pandering is so blatant and unfiltered. And then you have the black church that is complicit with this sort of tricking of the black community. They're complicit.
To leave me. I don't feel no ways tired.
Now, I played that to speak on because it's still in the same topic of the case against the Democratic Party. If you're in a black community and you understand that when they come there, that is just to get your vote, they're not at all delivering anything to your community. Just look at your community. But this video illustrates that it's just copy and paste. They're not at all interested in the black community, assisting the black community, helping the black community at all. And this video by Mark Lamont Hill absolutely destroys this black church argument and what the today's black church and how they're far from the radical black preachers, the radical black churches, like the Malcolm X's, the Martin Luther King. These are preachers. Let's listen.
That they opened the pulpit up to Genocide Joe. Y'all can get mad, I don't care. And people, as he began to give his campaign speech, some protesters stood up and said, "Stop the blood in Palestine." Yeah. They said, if you are outraged by the blood of Selma and you're outraged by the blood that was spilled in this very church, then how about calling for a ceasefire in Palestine, since you giving them the weapons, you giving them the support, you giving them the money? Joe, why don't you do something about it? They marched and stood up and got kicked out of the church, and people said, we're outraged. You know, I was outraged too. How dare you use this sacred space? How dare you use this beloved pulpit? How dare you use this sacred tradition? How dare you use the words of Jesus, who overturned the tables in the temple, who was committed to overturning a Roman government, who was committed to speaking out against injustice? How dare you use this space as a shield for imperial war? How dare you use this space as a shield for violence? How dare you use this space as a shield for genocide?
Destroyed the black church, and they have been sellouts for a while, I must say. And it could be a result. It could be a result of them being scared of the real deal leaders being all murdered, Malcolm X, MLK. Maybe that put fear in them and they began to sell out. But now let's get to the sellouts, because I quickly want to go through this last part, and that is going through some of the elected progressives, the elected Democrats, the ones who supposedly meet your policy beliefs or have your policy beliefs. So we're going to be examining the two sort of most public faces of the left, and we're going to be examining them through the lens of, is this the best we can get when we're voting for the Democratic Party? And if this is the best we can get when voting for the Democratic Party, maybe we should come up with a different plan. So, and I'm gonna call this AOC and Bernie selling out for genocide. And let's start with AOC. And I called this AOC the sellout, and this is how it began. You know how you've seen those? This is how it began, and this is how it's going. So that's how we're playing now with AOC, at least. This is how it began, and this is how it's going. So this is how it began. This is the video that takes care of the first part.
Feeling like it was a movement and that it wasn't about me was the most convincing aspect. Being like, oh yeah, I'll do this because it's a bunch of crazy people and this will be fun.
Yeah. Because all of you got into this like movement first, that's defined, I mean, your actions since you got elected.
Yeah.
Right? And everyone else is like, man, this is weird. Why are you doing this weird stuff? Well, it's because it's a different, you didn't come in. It's a different start.
Yeah. There's so much reaction to the divergence that our actions represent in DC, but really they've been consistent the entire time. It's just that
just
people, yeah, just like the only thing that's changed is that people pay attention now. I've literally been live streaming my life and our political actions since 2016. I've literally been movement first and accountable to social movements the entire time I've been running for office.
Right. It's really most people that change, right? Like they get elected and then they're like, okay, campaign's done.
There's a lot of people
That's
in
literally-
the Democratic caucus.
What she do?
When we are courageous enough to just puncture the silence on an issue, they will start to move. Don't people realize that the most powerful position you can be in is when you are not materially attached to a position of power? If you're a one-term Congress member, so what? You can make 10 years worth of change in one term if you're not afraid.
We've broken this video down many
Feeling
times.
like it
Obviously a sham because this person is unrecognizable today. Okay? So now I do want to play this other video because this is a classic. This is a cult classic I'll play before I get into this is how it started. This is another video showing this is how it started, I guess. And then it kind of transitions into this is how it's going. So this is a cult classic. Let's listen.
She went to Congress.
Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that?
Classic. All right, so that's kind of how it started with that video, and then we're transitioning to how it's going. So through headlines, let's see how it's going. House votes $1 billion for Israeli war machine without opposition from AOC. Last night, with the help of DSA endorsed Representative Jamal Bowman and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the House of Representatives approved $1 billion in new funding for Israel's Israeli Iron Dome missile interceptors. It's going great, right, guys? Let's see how it's going with another headline. Here's another one. AOC says she would vote to fund Israel's Iron Dome, but has concerns. So if you didn't know, remember when she was crying on the floor of Congress because of that vote she changed from no to present on the Iron Dome? After the attack on October 7th, she came out and said she would vote for the Iron Dome funding now. The representative also said discussing support to Israeli defense systems at this time is absolutely legitimate. Supporter of genocide. So if the best you can do, if the best we can do as a left movement is get somebody who's funding and supporting a genocide, maybe we should rethink our strategy here. Let's continue. Here's another one here. There's a very clear danger here. AOC on 2024, the climate crisis and selling out. And here's a snippet along the right side I'll read from the article. AOC is on a PR tour with corporate media in an attempt to whitewash her betrayals. That's what I said in the tweet. Now here's a quote from the article. From the left, the war in Ukraine is potentially more complicated. Putin's invasion by any means, any measure and affront to morality. But U.S. support for Ukraine has put critics of the military-industrial complex. The government spends more than $9 billion a year on defense, around 50% of the budget, 3% of domestic growth, in the uncomfortable position of rooting for the Pentagon endorsing a windfall for defense contractors. Now, let me say that again if you didn't catch it. I'm going to read it again without what's in the parentheses. U.S. support for Ukraine has put critics of the military-industrial complex in the uncomfortable position of rooting for the Pentagon and endorsing a windfall for defense contractors. That's AOC. That's the Democratic Party. They're the war party now. Longtime skeptics of U.S. imperialism suddenly find themselves aligned with Republican hawks. Bernie Sanders, AOC, and all of the other left, Rokana, who calls himself left. I don't consider him left. Rashida Tlaib. Ocasio-Cortez articulates the uneasy accommodation, and this is a quote from her. It's a legitimate conversation. I think, on the other hand, it is important for us to underscore what a dramatic threat to the global order Russia's invasion of Ukraine is and continues to be. We must defend democracy. We cannot allow this reversion into almost a late 19th century imperial invasion order. It is so incredibly destabilizing and dangerous. We must fight against that precedent. We must protect the democracy of Ukraine and the sovereignty of Ukraine. 100% a bold-faced lie made up word salad from AOC, the supposed anti-war activists. Let's get into a couple more receipts here. Headline, AOC brags about her transformation into a loyal agent of U.S. imperialism. Next headline here. Leftists blast AOC for endorsing Biden's re-election, a betrayal of progressive interests. Any other headlines? That is the last headline. Now let's go to Bernie Sanders' side. Here we go. With Bernie Sanders. Like with her, let's start with a video here. Let's start with this video of Bernie Sanders. Here goes Bernie.
DEI, are we confusing equality of opportunity with trying to guarantee equity in outcomes? Okay, that's interesting, because I think this word equity has come into the language in the last few years, and before that we didn't hear it a lot. And I think a lot of people hear equity and they hear equality, that like it's the same word, and it's not the same word in the same concept. So how would you differentiate between equity and equality?
Now, equity and equality are two different things. And I remember a meme I will use as an example, because they also talk about the difference between equity and equality. The picture, let me see, T versus, because that meme, I might get that meme to pop up. And if I can, then I want to show it to you. But the difference between equity and equality, and it does not. Oh yeah, no, it's a different one. All right, so there is some memes on equity and equality, but okay, here's the one I want to use. I did find one. So let me let him say his answer, and that's Bernie Sanders, and then I'm going to show you the right answer. So here's Bernie Sanders answering the question, the difference between equity and equality. Now, I must say, as a person on the left and as a person who's a socialist in particular, equity and equality, these are things you should be able to answer. Let's see what Bernie Sanders says to that.
Between equity and equality.
Well, equality, we talk about, I don't know what the answer to that is. Coming to think of it, equality.
I just need to take a breath there. Let's let him continue.
Equality is equality of opportunity. All right. We live in a society, we want all people
to
have whatever color your skin is.
Equity, I think, is more guarantee of outcome, is it not?
I think so. I think that's
okay. So which side do you come down on?
Equality.
Equality.
Yeah.
Okay. DEI.
He has no idea what he's talking about. And you can see it in his face that I'm picking equality because I have no idea what equity even is in this context. What a shame. What a damn shame. Now let's play. Now let's show, not play. Let's show. Where is it? This one here. Here's an example of equality versus equity. Equality is everybody gets the same box to view over this gate. You see the gate here in gray or fence, let's call it the right way, a fence to see the ball game in the background. You have a tall person in the red, you have it looks like a child maybe under 10, and then you have somebody, a small child in a wheelchair. If you have equality, means everybody gets the same size box, regardless of height. How does that help the person who's in a wheelchair? How Bernie Sanders doesn't know this? Let me blow this up. Now, on the right side, equity, which Bill Maher describes as having equal outcomes. Now, equal outcomes for capitalists is very disgusting. It leaves a bad taste in their mouths when they say equal outcomes, because capitalism is all about greed, about not having equal outcomes, about having more than everybody else. That's why when you say having equal outcomes, it's like some sort of, that doesn't hurt my ears when I hear that, but it hurts the ears of Bill Maher. Equal outcomes. God damn it. Gotta be the same as those Negroes over there. No way. So as here, equity, the tall person doesn't need anything to see over the fence. The young person, the 10-year-old, the 8-year-old, let's say, needs 2 boxes. The handicapped person needs a stairs and a platform. That's equity. Providing what's needed to bring everybody to an equal footing is equity. Bernie Sanders not able to even speak to that. Just truly, it's almost a level of disgust that he's not able to speak to that. It's just disgusting. There's no other way of saying it. All right. I believe I've come to an end. That was the last exhibit. I did the sellouts. I did the honest and clear with workers. I'm going to show you one other thing. It's not part of the presentation, just to show you. Yep. All right. So we covered other things. I just wanted the people to know this is just a fun fact. This is not part of the presentation. More Perfect Union is an account. It's on Twitter. The one I'm referring to, the one on Twitter right now, but they have like a YouTube page. They have, Instagram. They have everything, all the social media. But they're good typically on union stuff. They like to report on union stuff. But I noticed maybe 10 months ago, and it's like, man, they get shit right sometimes. But then they say some just stuff off the wall that seems to me not be in line with being for unions. And it's a lot of Democratic shit. A lot of shit is like, man, why are you pointing this out about a Democrat? They always point out good things about a politician, the politician is 10 out of 10 times a Democrat. And I started to pick up on that. I was like, this is a Democratic outfit. Then I actually confirmed it. So More Perfect Union, which does pretty decent work on, I would say 75% of the time they're good. 25% of the time they're shielding for Democrats. And this is the time I want to bring that up, because I'm bringing it up with this one here. Now, let's read what More Perfect Union says. We're told service work is unskilled, but that's just a myth to keep wages down. AOC, a former bartender herself, told us how much skilled labor goes into those jobs and how Las Vegas union could strike before Super Bowl to get paid for that labor. The Super Bowl is in Las Vegas, apparently, and they could possibly go on a strike. And their AOC is the one who's been selected to speak for unions for some reason. Yeah, you know the person who broke a strike? She's selected. So let's listen to the video and then we'll discuss on the other side.
A lot of times you will hear people talk about hospitality work as though it's low skill. But when you actually have that job, you realize how incredibly skilled it actually is.
Culinary Workers Union Local 226 here in Las Vegas, over 7,000 workers that are still left without a contract. We're pushing very hard for wages, healthcare, benefits, but also technology protection, workload reduction, and job security.
We heard about the fight that's bubbling out here, and we knew that we had to stop by before we headed back to DC and to New York just to offer support to you all.
These companies need to understand that they've got to come to the table with a fair contract, or workers are going to be ready to strike.
I come from hospitality. I started waitressing and bartending. The spot that I worked in was non-union, and we didn't have rights.
I found out knocking under the door that I wasn't alone.
They called cops on us. It's hard knocking on the door, but it is worth it. Have heart for the workers, for us, guest room attendant.
They recognize that it's not just about being a union member, but it's really about being someone who mobilizes, who actually takes action.
So that is AOC being used by More Perfect Union as to speak about labor rights, as to speak about a second here. Speak about labor rights. So what I want to do now is bring up this headline right here. Now I'm going to come back to this video. So let's bring up this headline. This one is Bernie Sanders, DSA play crucial role in passing anti-worker law against railroaders. Now, she's not in the headline, but this article also talks about AOC and her role, because when they say DSA, she's included, because they don't only just talk about AOC, they talk about all the DSA people. So AOC, Jamal Bowman, they talk about that in this article. So you have a strike breaker in AOC. Understand, she broke a strike. Rashida Tlaib didn't vote for it. She broke a strike that she did not need to vote for. And then, along with Ryan Grimm, tried to pretend like there were workers who wanted her to do that. And then later on, that came out to be a complete and bold-faced lie. More Perfect Union, do you think they don't know that AOC broke a strike? Do you think they don't know that? They do. But they're Democrats. And they're Justice Democrats in particular. So let's go back to the video and now go to my tweet. And this is my tweet. You may be asking yourself, why would a so-called pro-union account praise and promote a strike-breaking clown? More Perfect Union is a progressive Democrat outfit founded by Fareed Shakir. If you didn't know, and I said this in many times before and never brought the receipt. This time I decided to go get the receipt so people can see what I'm talking about here. And I'm going to retweet this, but More Perfect Union covers worker story before the mainstream media can. And look what it says under his name: founder and executive director, More Perfect Union. Bernie, and he has a picture, Bernie Sanders picture, when he used to be the campaign manager. So if you're wondering why More Perfect Union it seems suspect sometime here and there, this is the reason why. Somebody actually said that, and it says, that account always seems sus to me, now makes sense. So just to give you a tidbit of information, yes. All right, now I'm actually going to play Nick's video. It's a good outro video. So France is coming out. You know, the one that's asked for a ceasefire. Of course, all the white Western racist countries, they're not going to back the ICJ court case, the South Africans ICJ court case against Palestine. So that's what this video is about, France's response to it. So we're going to end with that. But before we end, of course, we got to go to Super Chat. So let's go to Super Chats now. But that does end the presentation on the left's case against the Democratic Party, because it's a unique sort of case against it from a perspective of, if you believe in these left policy beliefs, policy stances, then you should not be voting for Joe Biden. You don't tangibly get anything out of either administrations, Joe Biden administration versus the Donald Trump administration. You don't get anything tangible. So why are you choosing to sell out your policy beliefs to save democracy? I guess. But anyway, let's read from top to bottom. We'll start from the top. We got like 5 or 6 super chats. This one from Colbert Commander, we read it earlier, but knowing is half the battle. That's also a line from G.I. Joe. The other half is stuff I can't say on YouTube. All right, next one. This one is from Marcus, and it says, we need to get JD out of his nihilism. I'm assuming that means Jimmy Dore. Can anyone recommend Lyndon's State and Revolution or any refutation of the Black Book to him when on his show? Don't know. Let me just say it this way: not really interested in comments on Jimmy Dore again. You might be just getting caught in this, Marcus, and you don't know, but we get a lot of Jimmy Dore derangement, and they want us to speak to Jimmy Dore the way their Jimmy Dore derangement mind wants. How they speak to Jimmy Dore and the topics they speak to him, they want us to do that, and we're just not interested. I'm not interested in being that tool for Jimmy Dore derangement syndrome. Not saying you are that, because your tweet doesn't, your super chat doesn't necessarily speak to that. So, but I do. But the answer is the same. Just not interested in engaging with bringing Jimmy Dore on board to anything. I'm not interested in bringing on any allies aboard on anything that they're not allies on with. So Jimmy Dore is an ally on particular issues, Medicare for all. I don't need to bring him on board. He's already on board on that. Anything else, not interested. In particular with Jimmy Dore, I'm not interested because of the Jimmy Dore derangement. Here is Cooper, brand new member to the RBN community. Welcome, Cooper. happy you are aboard. And I read this one earlier during the segment, but this one from Janice, thank you for the super chat. Serious wishful thinking on their part. Understand the state of the movement. No, dude, trying to convince MSNBC brain dead audience fantasy is reality. Then where is it? Next one. Oh, this is just something I say. This is not a super chat. When I was going through the student loan debt, and I couldn't remember what was the amount for HSBUs, but it was the entire amount for HSBUs. So he still did not meet that promise. Here's another one from Michael Smith. First time you touch a stove, it's okay. You were young and naive. The second time, he's talking about voting for the Democratic Party over and over and not getting any results. The second time, the lesson is, all stoves are all that. The third time, the lesson isn't, I haven't found that the one that won't burn me. It's stop touching the stove. So I'm going to read that again because I kind of jumbled it there. First time you touch a stove, it's okay. You are young and naive. The second time you touch a stove, it's, all stoves are like that. Like, you were young and naive. Now you're touching it, it's like, wait, all stoves are like that. All Democrats are like that. The third time, the lesson isn't, I haven't found the right progressive Democrat. And I'm reading it and giving it the context in politics. The lesson is stop touching the stove, stop voting Democratic Party. So that's how I translated it. I hope I translated it and gave it a political lens. Hope that's okay. And here's the last super chat. Thank you for all the super chats, but here's the final one from Putz the Mouse. RBN, my daily dose of realness. And thank you for that final super chat and all the super chats we received today. Let's clear it off. We're going to end with this video from Nick. Here is the 3-hour live stream I brought to you. I survived 3 hours. I didn't think I would get here, but I'm trying to provide content that we can cut up. And also, we didn't have a live stream today, so I came live today. Tomorrow, you got Nick. Sunday, you have JB. And then Monday, you have the Nick and CJ show again. Then Tuesday, you have Nick at Night. Then Wednesday, you have Straight Outta Politics with me. Then Thursday, you have the JB and Sabby show, or the Sabby and JB show, and also Nick at Night on Thursday. And then Friday, we'll see what happens. Friday is usually our day off day. We provide 2 live streams on Thursday that's supposed to take care of the Friday stream, but we shall see. Put up your comments if you want to if you want some comments in the final few seconds of the stream. Now is the time to say your goodbye comments, your shout out comments right now. As I play this video, it's 2 minutes and 20 seconds, I believe. So that is the amount of time you have to put up your last minute tweets so that I can get them on the screen. As we close, have a good rest of your Friday and a great weekend. Tomorrow you got Nick, and on Sunday you got JB. I am out.
France has decided to oppose the genocide charges laid against Israel at the International Court of Justice. Just like the United States and Germany, France is not rebuking any of the genocide claims laid out by South Africa. France claims that it's morally bankrupt to charge the only Jewish state with genocide. So what France is doing right now is reaffirming far-right Jewish supremacy ideology. Jewish supremacy is the idea that Jewish people can do whatever they want to non-Jews because they are God-chosen people and everyone else is inferior. For example, we've seen a top rabbi in Israel that advocated using rape as a weapon because Jews are allowed to rape non-Jews according to these extremists. But we have France that is reaffirming Jewish supremacy. We have Germany supporting Israel because they still feel bad about Holocaust, so they're supporting Israel's Holocaust. The Western societies in this world have lost their mind. Luckily, we now have the global South
that is rising up and calling out the violent hypocrisy of the West. We now have Mexico and Chile. They are launching probes at the ICC looking at Israel's genocide in Gaza. Now we have a separate probe at the ICC launched by Indonesia that looks at the 70-year-old occupation of Palestine. Israel really fucked up. Now they got the entire world pissed off, and now they are going after them. So the strategy was to have South Africa go first and lay out a devastating argument against Israel. Now legal teams around the world is about to come around and hold this genocidal apartheid state accountable. What a time to be alive. We have the Western countries that are banding together in solidarity in order to throw out international law and the concept of genocide and war crimes, while the global South is demanding fair application of international law. The global South is set to expose the rules-based order as the fraudulent joke it's always been. Joe Biden is set to designate the Houthis in Yemen as a terrorist organization. The Houthis in Yemen are officially known as the Ansar Allah, and they control the capital and govern over 80% of the population. They are the formally recognized government of Yemen. So Genocide Joe and his entire batshit crazy administration just put a whole ass country on the terrorist list because Yemen is the only country that is following their obligation laid out by the Genocide Convention. The Genocide Convention states that anyone who helps enable a genocide, including private entities, is fair target. So according to the United States and UK, the Ansar Allah are evil because they're implementing a blockade to oppose a genocide. Also, the United States wants to take an anti-blockade position You sure you want to have that conversation? The United States has implemented a blockade on Cuba for decades, not because they implemented a genocide, but because Cuba chose a different financial and economic system than them. But people in the West think they have the right to condemn the brave warriors of Yemen? So the cowardly Israelis who bomb hospitals and target children, according to the United States, they're not terrorists. According to the United States, the KKK is not a terrorist organization. There are over 3 million signatures on change.org that have been begging our government to label the KKK as a terrorist organization, and they still refuse to. So the KKK, not terrorists. The people who oppose genocide as their legal duty, they are terrorists, according to this country. If you are not careful, the media will have you hate the people that are being oppressed while loving the people who are doing the oppressing.